Grumpy Hunter here. Well, I spoke too soon about calling it quits on the topics of speed, arrow weight, momentum, and kinetic energy. Let's talk about grains per pound. There are 7,000 grains in a pound. But that's not what I'm talking about. This discussion is about minimum arrow weight based on the bow's draw weight. You may recall in the case of increasing and diminishing returns that I said the modern compound bows and crossbows have more than enough stored energy and the string is pulled back than what is needed to launch the arrow. I also touched on the arrows that came with your crossbow being at the minimum or below minimum weight needed for your bow. You may be asking, why is there a minimum weight for an arrow? There are many reasons. I believe the number one reason should be to protect the bow, especially the limbs and other components that can and will fail at some point due to excess energy. Stress caused by having to absorb stored energy not used to launch the arrow. What is the minimum arrow weight required to protect your limbs and other components? How can that information be found? The minimum GPP for vertical bows has been around for some years now. From the International Bow Hunters Association, IBO, the minimum GPP is 5 with a minimum shooting speed of 290 feet per second. The IBO standard has been around since about 1984. While the American Trade Association, ATA, formerly named the Archery Manufacturers and Dealers Association, AMADA, also known as Archery Manufacturers Organization, AMO, is 6 GPP based on a 360 grain arrow, 30-inch draw, and 60-pound draw weight. An acquaintance of mine who has more years experience than I do working with arrows has completed some extensive research on arrows. During his research, he has calculated the modified grains per pound for compound crossbows based on the standards for vertical bows from both the IBO and the ATA. Not knowing how he did his calculations and to get a better understanding, I too did some number crunching of the AMO table, and I did that 2 different ways. In the first way, I took the minimum draw weights from the speed cam column and doubled those values to get closer to the crossbow draw weights. I divided the arrow weight values in each of the draw length columns by the new draw weight to get a GPP for each arrow weight. I then added the GPPs together and got 314.5 plus. I then averaged the sum of the GPPs to get an average GPP. The result is 2.9123 plus grains per pound. That could be rounded to 2.9. The second way I did it, like the first time, I doubled the minimum draw weights from the speed cam column. I averaged the arrow weights in each of the draw length columns. I then took those values and added them together for 2651 plus, and then divided that by the number of draw length columns and got 294.6 plus. Dividing the average arrow weight by the average draw weight, I got a result of 2.98, rounded to 3.0. Averaging the two results, I get 2.95, and that rounds to 3.0. Furthermore, I did the same 2 calculations using the initial draw weights, and method 1, the result was 5.81. Method 2 came out to 5.9. Both those round to 6, which is the same as what the AMO table is based on. Adding both results together, it averages up to 6 also. After all the numbers were crunched, the only variable that's different between the two standards is draw length. The average crossbow was just over 1/2 the length of the IBO draw length standard. We're not talking arrow length, but how far the strings pulled back. Using the information that the new GPP was calculated on from the AMO table, the IBO standard can be adjusted to 2.5. Our methods may not be perfect or the same, and without seeing each other's work, we came up with the same values. The arrows that came with my crossbow that has a 170-pound draw weight with a 100 grain point is 3 grains over the 2.5 GPP. Is that a coincidence? Now, these new minimum GPPs have not been tested in the field, but only on paper. It seems we have a minor issue in the projection booth. While the projectionist is working to fix it, I would like to clarify something. In my last video, I talked about increasing the arrow's weight and the benefits of a heavy arrow. In this video, I'm only talking about the minimum safe arrow weight to protect your crossbow from damage. I'm not suggesting in any way that you should be using light arrows for any reason. It's just the opposite. I believe that a heavy arrow is best. Hold on, the projectionist is trying to say something. The projectionist said he's ready to start again. Please pardon the interruption. Okay, Joe, roll it. How do you calculate the minimum arrow weight for your bow? The easy way is to take the manufacturer's stated draw weight and multiply that by the GPP values. For example, if your draw weight is 150 pounds, you will need a minimum arrow weight of somewhere between 375 to 450 grains. Using some of the information I spoke of in my other videos, let's look at the performance change with increasing the arrow weight. Let's look at a crossbow that has a 150 pound draw weight with an initial speed of 228 feet per second, shooting a 428 grain arrow. The 428 grains is somewhere between the two minimums of 375 and 450. What happens when the arrow weight is increased to 450 grains? Well, the arrow weight increased by 5.14%. The speed drops to 223.6 feet per second, or 1.93%. The momentum increases by 3.11%. The kinetic energy increases by 1.12%. The flight time to 20 yards changed by 0.004 seconds. That's 4 1,000ths of a second. So basically there's no change. Flight time to 30 yards changed from 0.37 to 0.38 or 0.01 seconds. Let's look at a crossbow that has a 170 pound draw weight and is rated at 350 feet per second, firing a 428 grain arrow. GPP's, the minimum arrow weight, is calculated to 425 to 510 with an average of 467.5. Increasing the arrow weight to 467.5 grains, the arrow weight increased 9.23%. The speed drops down to 342.1 or a 2.26%. Momentum increased by 6.76%. Kinetic energy increased by 4.35%. The flight time to 20 yards went from 0.17 to 0.18. And the flight time out to 30 yards went from 0.26 to 0.27. Both those are a 0.01 second change. More importantly, the stress on both bows' components have dropped. You may recall in the case of diminishing returns, I talked about heavy arrows, and that if you increase the weight by adding it to the front of the arrow, you're increasing the FOC. Remember that a heavy arrow will require more energy to launch, will reduce stress on the crossbow, will lower the noise of the shot, will have more momentum, will have more penetration, will be harder to stop, will be more stable in flight, will hold its trajectory, will produce better groups, and in many cases have more kinetic energy. Old Grumpy Hunter here. I provided the preceding information only for something for the viewer to think about. The minimum grains per pound talked about in this video have not been tested in the field and are provided here only as a theory. It is up to the viewer to use an arrow weight that is heavy enough to protect his or her equipment. Old Grumpy Hunter is not suggesting shooting arrows that are below the bow manufacturer's recommendations, even if the information provided in this video may suggest using a lighter arrow. If you are shooting arrows that are below the bow manufacturer's recommendations, you are taking full responsibility for any and all damages to your equipment and for any or all injuries to yourself and others. Always practice safe shooting and use equipment that is in good order.
Thank you for watching this Old Grumpy Hunter presentation. Please give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to push the notification bell.